Chapter 7. The Tramp, Clear Off, and Fatty. The four children met in the old summer house, all full of excitement. Bets and Buster were not yet back, but they couldn't wait for them to come. They had to tell their news. "We saw the chauffeur. He's called Thomas," said Larry. "He told us all about the valet called Mr. Peaks. He was chucked out on the day of the fire for wearing his master's clothes." "I'm sure he did the crime," said Fatty eagerly. "We must find out more about him. He lives in the next village." "Yes, but listen," said Daisy. "It might be old Mr. Smelly." "Who?" said Larry and Fatty in astonishment. "Mr. Smelly?" "Yes," said Daisy with a giggle. "We thought it couldn't be a real name when we heard it, but it is." "Mr. Hiccup and Mr. Smelly," said Fatty unexpectedly. "What a lovely pair." Larry chuckled. "Daisy and Pip don't know about Mr. Hick and Cup," he said. He told them. They laughed. "It isn't really very funny, but it seems as if it is," said Daisy. "At school, things seem like that sometimes, too. We scream with laughter, and afterwards it doesn't really seem funny at all. But do let us tell you about Mr. Smelly and the quarrel he had with Mr. Hiccup." She told Larry and Fatty all that Mrs. Minns had said. Then Pip told about the old tramp who had been caught stealing eggs, and then Daisy described how Mr. Hick himself had come into the kitchen and rowed Mrs. Minns for letting her cat get under his feet. "They had a proper quarrel," said Daisy, "and Mrs. Minns actually called after Mr. Hick and said she felt like burning down his cottage if it hadn't already been done." "Golly," said Larry, surprised. "It looks as if old Mrs. Minns might have done it herself, then. If she felt like it today, she might quite easily have felt like it 2 days ago and done it. She had plenty of chance." "You know, we have already found 4 suspects," said Fatty solemnly. "I mean, we can quite properly suspect 4 persons of setting fire to that cottage. The old tramp, Mr. Smelly, Mr. Peaks, and Mrs. Minns. We are getting on." "Getting on?" said Larry. "Well, I don't know about that. We seem to find more and more people to suspect, which makes it all more and more difficult. I can't think how in the world we're going to discover which it is." "We must find out the movements of the 4 suspects," said Fatty wisely. "For instance, if we find out that Mr. Smelly, whoever he is, spent the evening of the day before yesterday 50 miles away from here, we can rule him out. And if we find that Horace Peaks was at home with his mother all that evening, we can rule him out, and so on." "What we shall probably find is that all 4 people were messing about somewhere near the place," said Pip. "And how in the world are we going to trace that old tramp? You know what tramps are. They wander about for miles, and nobody knows where they go or where they come from." "Yes, the tramp's going to be difficult," said Daisy. "Very difficult. We can't rush all over the country looking for a tramp, and if we did find him, it's going to be difficult to ask him if he set fire to the cottage." "We needn't do that," said Larry. "Have you forgotten our clues?" "What do you mean?" asked Daisy. "Well, we've only got to find out what size shoes he wears, and if they've got rubber soles, criss-crossed with markings underneath, and if he wears a grey flannel coat," said Larry. "He doesn't wear a grey flannel coat," said Fatty. "I told you, he wore an old mackintosh." The others were silent for a moment. "Well, he might have a grey flannel coat underneath," said Daisy. "He might have taken his mackintosh off for a moment." The others thought this was rather feeble, but they had no better suggestion. "Time enough to worry about grey flannel coats and mackintoshes when we've found the tramp," said Pip. "That is going to be a problem, I must say." "Hark! Isn't that old Buster barking?" said Fatty suddenly. "I bet that's Bets coming back. Yes, she's calling to Buster. I say, haven't we got a lot of news for her?" The sound of Bets's running feet was heard up the drive, and then down the garden path to the summer house. The 4 big ones went to the door to welcome her. Buster shot up to them, barking madly. "Bets, we've got such a lot of news!" called Larry. "We've had a most exciting time!" cried Daisy. But Bets didn't listen. Her eyes were shining brightly, her cheeks were red with running, and she could hardly get her words out, she was so excited. "Pip! Larry! I've got a clue! Oh, four together. "I've found the tramp!" panted the little girl. "Do say he's the biggest clue we've found!" "Well, he's really a suspect, not a clue," began Larry, but the others interrupted him. "Bet, are you sure you've found the tramp?" asked Pip excitedly. "Golly, we thought that would be almost impossible." "Where is he?" demanded Fatty, ready to go after him immediately. "How do you know it's the tramp?" cried Daisy. "Well, he was wearing a dirty old mackintosh and a terrible old hat with a hole in the crown," said Betts. "Just like Fatty said." "Yes, the hat did have a hole in the crown," said Fatty. "Betts, where is this fellow?" "Well, I went for a walk with Buster, as you know," said Betts, sinking down on the grass, tired out with running. "He's a lovely dog to take for a walk, because he's so interested in everything. Well, we went down the lane and into the fields and along by the river, ever so far. We came to a field where sheep and lambs were, and there was a hayrick nearby." Buster barked a little, as if he wanted to tell about it all too. Betts put her arm round him. "It was Buster who found the tramp, wasn't it, darling? You see, I was walking along, and suddenly Buster went all stiff, and the hairs rose up along the back of his neck, and he growled." said Buster obligingly. "He honestly understands every word, doesn't he?" said Betts. "Well, Buster went all funny like that, and then he began to walk stiffly towards the hayrick. You know, just as if he had bad rheumatism or something." "Animals always walk like that when they are suspicious or frightened or angry," said Fatty, grinning at Betts. "Go on, don't be so long-winded." "I went with Buster," said Betts, "as quietly as I could, thinking there might be a cat or something the other side of the rick. But it was the tramp." "Golly," said Larry, and Pip whistled. "You're a very good find-outer," said Fatty warmly. "I did so badly want to find out something," said Betts. "But I suppose, really and truly, it was Buster who did the finding, wasn't it?" "Well, he wouldn't have if you hadn't taken him for a walk," said Larry. "What was the tramp doing?" "He was asleep," said Betts. "Fast asleep. He didn't even wake when Buster sniffed at his feet." "His feet?" said Pip. "What sort of shoes did he have on? Did they have rubber soles?" Betts looked dismayed. "Oh, I never thought of looking. And I so easily could have seen, couldn't I, because he was fast asleep. But I was so excited at finding him that I just never thought of looking at his shoes." "There's no time to be lost," said Pip, jumping up. "He may still be fast asleep. We'd better go and have a look at him and his shoes and his clothes. Fatty can tell us at once if he's the tramp he saw in Mr. Hicks' garden or not." Excited and rather solemn, the 5 find-outers and dogs set off down the lane to the fields that ran beside the river. They went fast in case the tramp had woken up and gone on his way. It was so marvellous that Betts should actually have found him. They couldn't possibly risk losing him. They came to the rick. A gentle sound of snoring told them that the tramp was still there. Fatty picked up Buster and crept round the rick without making a sound. On the other side, curled up well, lay a tramp. He was an old fellow with a stubbly grey beard, shaggy grey eyebrows, a red nose, and long hair that straggled from under a terrible old hat. Fatty took a look at him. He tiptoed back to the others. "Yes, it's the tramp all right," he whispered, thrilled. "But it's going to be difficult to pull aside his mackintosh to see if he's got a grey coat underneath. And he's got his feet sort of curled up underneath him. We shall have to get right down on the ground to see what sort of sole his shoes have got underneath." "I'll go and try," said Larry. "You others keep Buster quiet here and watch out in case anyone comes." Leaving the others on the far side of the rick, Larry crept round to the side where the tramp slept. He sat down near him. He put out his hand to pull aside the old mackintosh to see if the man wore grey underneath. The trousers appearing below the coat were so old and dirty that it was quite impossible to tell what colour they had once been. The tramp moved a little, and Larry took back his hand. He decided to try and see the underneath of the man's shoes, so he knelt down, put his head to the ground, and did his best to squint at the tramp's shoes. The tramp suddenly opened his eyes. He stared in the greatest astonishment at Larry. "What's bitten you?" he suddenly said, and Larry almost jumped out of his skin. "Think I'm the King of England, I suppose, kneeling in front of me with your head on the ground like that?" said the tramp. "Get away! I can't abide children. Nasty, interfering little creatures." He curled himself up again and shut his eyes. Larry waited for a second or two, and was about to try squinting at the man's shoes again, when he heard a low whistle from the other side of the rick. That meant someone was coming. Well, they would all have to wait till the passer-by was gone. Larry crept round to join Pip and the rest. "Someone coming?" he asked. "Yes, old Clear-Off," said Fatty. Larry peeped round the rick. The village policeman was coming up from the other direction, along a path that did not go near the rick. He would soon be gone. But as he came along, he suddenly caught sight of the old tramp sleeping by the rick. The children drew back hurriedly as Mr. Goon walked quietly and quickly over to the rick. There was a ladder leaning against the rick, and Larry pushed Betts and the others up as quickly as he could. They would be less likely to be seen on top than below. Fortunately, the rick had been cut well out, when hay was taken to the various farm animals, and it was easy to balance on the cut-out part. The policeman crept up quietly. The children, peering over the rick, saw him take out a notebook. Fatty gave Larry such a nudge that the boy nearly fell. "Look! Look what he's got down in his notebook! He's got a drawing of that footprint we saw! He's been cleverer than we thought." Clear-Off tiptoed up to the tramp and tried his best to see what sort of shoes he had on. He too did as Larry had done and knelt down, the better to see. And the tramp opened his eyes. His astonishment at seeing the policeman kneeling in front of him was enormous. It was one thing to see a boy behaving like that, but quite another thing to see a policeman. The tramp leapt to his feet with a howl. "First it's a boy bowing down to me, and now it's a bobby," he said, jamming his old hat down on his long grey hair. "What's it all about?" "I want to see your shoes," said Clear-Off. "Well, see them then. Look at them well, laces and all," said the tramp, rapidly losing his temper. "I want to see the soles," said the policeman stolidly. "Are you a cobbler or a policeman?" asked the tramp. "Well, you show me the buttons on your shirt, and I'll show you the soles of my shoes." The policeman began to breathe very heavily, and his face got red. He snapped his notebook shut. "You better come along with me," he said. The tramp didn't think so. He skipped out of the way and began to run across the field, very nimbly indeed for an old fellow. Clear-Off gave a roar and turned to run after him. And at that moment, Fatty, excited beyond words, fell off the hayrick and landed with a thud on the ground below. He gave such an agonized yell that the policeman stopped in amazement. "What's all this here?" he said, and glared at Fatty. Then he caught sight of the other children peering anxiously down from the top of the rick, afraid that Fatty had broken all his bones. He was most astonished. "You come on down," he roared. "Always children messing about. You wait till the farmer catches you. How long have you been there? What do you mean, spying like this?" Fatty gave a frightful groan, and the policeman, torn between his desire to rush after the disappearing tramp and to pull Fatty to his feet, went up to him. "Don't touch me! I think I've broken my left leg and my right arm, dislocated both my shoulders and broken my appendix," said Fatty, who sincerely believed that he was practically killed. Betts gave a squeal of horror and jumped down to see what she could do to help poor Fatty. The others leapt down too, and Buster danced delightedly round Clear-Off's ankles. "Clear-Off!" he said. "Dogs and children, always messing about and getting in the way. Now that fellow's gone, and I've missed a chance of questioning him." He waited to see if Fatty was really hurt, but except for a few bruises, Fatty was not hurt at all. He had not broken any bones. As soon as the policeman saw the others helping Fatty up, brushing him down and comforting him, he took a look round to see if he could make out where the tramp had gone. But he was nowhere to be seen. He turned to the 5 children. "Now clear off," he said, "and don't let me see you hanging round again." Then with great dignity, Mr. Goon made his way heavily to the path and walked down it without turning his head once. The children looked at each other. "We were getting on so well till Clear Off came," sighed Daisy. "I wonder where that tramp went to." "I'm going home," said Fatty miserably. "I feel awful." "I'll take you home," said Daisy. "You come too, Bets. Do you boys want to see if you can trace the tramp?" "Yes," said Larry. "Might as well while we've got the chance. I don't wonder Fatty fell off the rig. It was pretty exciting, wasn't it?" "Fancy old Clear Off having a drawing of that footprint in his notebook," said Pip thoughtfully. "He's smarter than I thought. Still, we've got something he hasn't got, a bit of grey flannel." Fatty, Daisy, Bets and Buster went off together. The other two set off in the direction the tramp had taken. They meant to find him again, if they could.